Laughter fades. The property was built to keep danger out. Security cameras watched every corner. A driveway sensor sounded whenever someone approached. 4 German shepherds guarded the land like watchmen. Guns were always close to both adults who lived there. This wasn't just a house, it was a fortress, built slowly in rural Ohio by a man who believed in preparation, independence, and control. And yet, inside an upstairs bedroom, that man lay still. He had been shot once in the back of the head, at point-blank range, an execution-style killing. His wife was on the phone with 911, screaming for help. Her voice shook with fear as she tried to explain what had happened. But the fortress had seen nothing. The cameras showed no movement. The dogs never barked. The sensors never went off. A revolver lay on the kitchen floor. 1 bullet had been fired. The chamber was still warm. No broken windows, no forced doors, no sign that anyone had entered or left. So how did this happen? And if someone did break in, how did they get past everything without leaving a trace? For investigators who arrived that morning, these questions became an obsession, one that lasted for years. Because the truth they uncovered was not just disturbing. It was darker than any theory about an intruder. Are you ready for the darkest story's dark crime with Kieran? Now, let's return to today's case. Music. Jeremy Scott Simcoe was born on July 7, 1973, in Lorain, Ohio, a working-class city near Lake Erie, shaped by steel mills and close-knit neighborhoods. He grew up in Sheffield Township, surrounded by woods and silence, the kind that makes you notice every sound. Jeremy loved the outdoors from a young age. While other kids stayed inside, he explored nature. In high school, he focused that energy on wrestling. Competing at 135 pounds, he learned discipline, strength, and how to keep going even when exhausted. People remembered him as focused, intense, and driven, someone who hated losing. After graduating in 1991, Jeremy studied arboriculture at Hawking Technical College. It fit him perfectly. He worked for tree service companies, learning how the business really worked. At just 24 years old, he started his own company. In 1997, Simcoe Tree Service was born. Jeremy ran his business with high standards. Every job had to be done right. He climbed trees others refused to touch, working high above the ground with confidence. The business grew fast, more trucks, more workers, and a strong reputation. But there was another side. At work, Jeremy could be tough. He was demanding and quick to anger when mistakes were made. Some people respected that, others didn't. In dangerous work, mistakes can kill, but strict leadership can also create tension. Outside of work, Jeremy was calmer. Friends described him as patient and thoughtful. He loved nature, campfires, and teaching. He spent time with his nieces and nephews, teaching them to swim, hunt safely, and drive on quiet roads. Family meant everything to him. His parents, Rose and Robert, his sisters, Melanie and Hillary, his grandmother Mary, and his in-laws, Judy and Rolando Maldonado. Their daughter, Jeline, became Jeremy's wife and his business partner. They ran Simcoe Tree Service together. Jeline handled paperwork and scheduling. Jeremy did the physical work. People often described them as best friends. They spent time hiking with their 4 German shepherds, the same dogs that would later become important to the case. Their home on Northridge Road wasn't just a place to live. It was a compound, a gated driveway, a sensor that warned of cars, door alarms on every entrance, cameras recording at all times. And at night, 4 large dogs chained around the property, living alarms with teeth. Guns were always nearby. Both Jeremy and Jeline had permits. A 9mm stayed in the bedroom. A .357 Magnum was kept downstairs. Police response in the area could take time. Jeremy planned for that. He built layers of security. He prepared for everything, except one thing. Tuesday, November 17, 2009, was normal. Jeline canned pumpkins. They watched TV. Nothing felt wrong. Around 10 p.m., Jeremy went outside to secure the dogs. The cameras recorded it, the last normal video they would ever capture. He locked up, turned on the system, and went to bed. Julene later said she slept on the third-floor couch. Her reasons changed. Too hot, snoring, being pushed out of bed. Those changes would later raise questions. But one thing was clear: nothing unusual happened. Until 6 a.m., a gunshot broke the silence. Jeremy Simcoe was shot in the back of the head while sleeping. Investigators believed he never woke up. He never reached for his gun. He never fought back. He died in the home he built to protect himself. Minutes later, Julene called 911. She sounded panicked and said someone had broken in. She tried CPR while staying on the phone. When police arrived, she was still talking to dispatch. She said she thought Jeremy had fired at an animal, but something felt wrong. She went downstairs, felt blood, heard another sound, grabbed the 9mm and fired twice into the hallway before calling for help. The .357 Magnum was found on the kitchen floor. One bullet had been fired, but nothing made sense. No forced entry, no broken locks, no camera footage, no barking dogs. The kitchen door was open, but the screen door was closed. No footprints, no unknown DNA, nothing missing. Investigators tried to imagine it. An intruder getting past a gate, sensors, dogs, and cameras. Finding a gun they didn't know about. Killing a man in his sleep. Carefully setting the gun down, then disappearing. It seemed impossible. As the case went on, problems appeared. Julene's changing story. The gun placed carefully. A nurse said Julene first said, "I shot my husband," before correcting herself. Money issues came up, a loan was denied, an appraisal that never happened. And online, someone had viewed her father's obituary hours before the shooting. Each detail alone meant little. Together, they told a troubling story. Years passed. Leads went nowhere. Suspects were ruled out. But the evidence kept pointing back inside the house. In 2014, Julene Simcoe was charged with murder. In 2017, she chose a judge instead of a jury. The defense called no witnesses. The prosecution said this: an intruder story required too many impossible steps. The other explanation did not. On October 20th, 2017, the judge gave his verdict. Guilty. Julene Simcoe was sentenced to 28 years to life in prison. Today, the house still stands, quiet and ordinary. But for those who loved Jeremy Simcoe, the pain remains. He prepared for every danger. But sometimes the danger doesn't come from outside. Sometimes the walls don't protect. They hide the truth inside. If this story stayed with you, consider subscribing and sharing. These stories matter, not for shock, but for understanding. Because remembering who people were before tragedy is how we honor them